So today I'm talking to Suzy Wraines about being comfortable with change. That's a big thing to dive into. So I'm excited. I can't wait. So a little bit about Suzy here is she's a healing-centered business coach and a podcast coach who helps medical professionals transition from clinical roles into purpose-driven entrepreneurship. She's known for her grounding, guidance, and spiritual insight. Suzy specializes in supporting nurses, physicians' assistants, kind of a mouthful there, therapists, and holistic healers to start coaching, consulting, and other service-based businesses without second guessing their worth or doing it all alone, which we all know about that feeling of being all alone as entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. Anyways, so let's get into the topic. Without further ado, Suzy, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to chat with you. We're talking about a super exciting topic, but before we get into that, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Heather, for having me on. Um, so there's a lot of facets to me. I know we talked a little bit before we hit record, but you and I connected from the military connection. So I do want to name that. I was an Army medic. And we have a familiar background with that.
Yeah.
But I transitioned. When I got out of the Army, I did veterinary medicine. And then after that, did health coaching. I got certified in health coaching. So that kind of brought me to where I'm at now, which is actually business coaching. So I have starting a business simplified. I have a podcast as well as a business, and I help healthcare professionals transitioning. So they want to leave the healthcare system. They're transitioning into having their own practice or doing something online or coaching, consulting, something in the services space. And I help them at the very beginning when they're creating their foundational pieces. So that's what I'm currently doing now.
I love it. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. You and I connected so beautifully, and we had the army to relate on. We had all sorts of things to relate on. You just shared that you've got a big move coming up, which will lead us right into our conversation. But where you are moving to, I have lived. You've also lived there already. So anyway, yeah, I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with you. So thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself. It's always cool to know, like, why am I listening to this person? Who are they? And so you are absolutely worth listening to. You have some beautiful knowledge to share today. So let me stop rambling and let us get into it. So for folks who are listening in, we're talking today about being comfortable with change. That's a deep topic, but I cannot wait. I know you and I are both geeking out. We're so ready for this. So why don't we get into it? Where shall we start?
So as entrepreneurs, because I know a lot of your listeners, they're listening because of that. And again, I speak to the new entrepreneurs. That's something that what sparks me is that we have to be comfortable with it. And I know we have military background. You work with the military. That's something you get used to. It's kind of like you get thrown into it and then you're like, oh, we're moving every couple of years or we're changing our lives all the time and everything. And so when I started as an entrepreneur, that part wasn't too challenging, but in a different way. So I realized that there's different phases of our comfort zone.
Mhm.
It's like I'm really comfortable in this one way, but then I'm not so comfortable if I move in this direction or further in this direction. So there's all these different things. And as entrepreneurs, when you start doing that, again, I speak with new people, they don't know where those boundaries are. They don't understand, oh, I'm comfortable with looking at my numbers, but I'm not comfortable with having a conversation with somebody to maybe sell them, or I'm comfortable with talking to people all the time, but I'm not comfortable with asking for money. So there's like all these different, it's just so dynamic in the change that happens as an entrepreneur. So I love to share and talk about what are things that you can do to make that easier. And the one thing that stands out to me all the time is repetition. So I'm going to talk
Hmm.
podcast because you and I are talking on a podcast.
Yeah.
When I started my podcast, so uncomfortable. Yeah. And I just did audio. So we're on video today, but 3 years ago, I was audio only. And that was even a comfort zone. It was like, oh, I'm hitting record and every little thing that I say is going to get recorded. But the more that I did it repetitively, it started to evolve and get easier and easier and easier to where we are today. So today I'm on video with you and I don't have the nervous system response of like, oh, she hit record. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So it's thinking about change from different levels, but also how can you alleviate some of the discomfort when you're working on something new?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around that?
Oh, I love it. I actually have a follow-up question for you. I'm all the way on board with everything you're saying so far. You just said, I don't have the nervous system response. And of course, that's something you and I are very familiar with. But for somebody who's like, what is that? How would you explain that to them? What does that feel like or look like?
Yeah. So our body it gives us feedback before our brain does. So, for example, when I got ready to hit record on my very first podcast, when I didn't really know what I wanted to say, like I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to talk about, but hitting record was that was the moment
Mhm.
that then my heart started to race more. It's like you have these physical, but maybe I started sweating. My heart started racing a little bit more. Maybe I had to clear my throat. Like if you are not, let me go back to fight, flight, or freeze. Most people can understand that. So
Yes.
the nervous system response is that fight, flight, or freeze. So for example, my heart rate going up, I'm either going to not record. So I'm just going to stop it. I'm just going to say, nope, that's too uncomfortable. I'm not going to do it today.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to do something to lower my heart rate. So maybe take some deep breaths in, relax my body. So again, it's the sensation of your body is the nervous system response. It's kind of like when you're on a roller coaster and your stomach feels like it comes up in your throat,
Yeah.
that body sensation of that's your nervous system because it's like, whoa, what's happening?
Yeah.
So when people are getting ready to do something new or a change is happening that they're unfamiliar with, our body's going to feel it first.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really important. I think it's a really important point, is what I'm trying to say, to nail down because I think that in today's society, tell me if you agree with this or not, but in today's society, we are so ingrained in like a hustle culture and a go-go. And I mean us as a whole, right? Humans. Go, 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 go. And so most of us are very familiar with the fact that we've got ideas, like our head is clouded with all sorts of ideas and thoughts running around all the time. So many of us will say like, oh, I just couldn't get my brain to shut off to go to fall asleep last night, right? But I think a lot fewer of us who haven't really dove into the personal development space aren't familiar with the concept of your body is always responding, whether it's and I'm going to use this term loosely, like a positive or a negative response, right? Whether it's like a stress response, a tightening of the muscles, or a quickening of the heart rate, or a sweating, or whatever, or like an ease of the muscles. Indicating most people are like, okay, yeah, I get the concept, but aren't aware that that is constantly happening. So I think that is
Yeah.
such an important point to talk about for just a second. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
It's kind of like a barometer. It's like a temperature check for how comfortable are you with this new thing.
Yeah.
So I can now when I hit record, nothing. Like I mean, I don't have the symptoms that I had before, but I'm doing something new in my business now and I'm learning a new skill and I can sense now in my body because I've learned how to really be quiet, like you said, let go of the hustle, the noise. And so when I get ready to do the new skill, I'm actually paying attention.
Hmm.
Like, okay, where am I feeling this in my body right now
Yeah.
as I do this thing that's uncomfortable? Because then I know how to regulate it and it'll make that change more smooth. We can live in the calm part of it more. And when we're busy, like you named, hustling, and that's our culture,
Hmm.
just like busy, 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 information coming at you. You can be on, have like 20 different things going at once. That's actually avoiding you from being able to feel what's
Yeah.
happening in your body because there's so much going on that it's just busy and noisy. So, think going back to our common discussion around change,
Mhm.
that's how we avoid change
Yeah.
because we're comfortable in the busy. We're comfortable in not feeling. And I'm gonna tie this to my experience in the army because this was something I had to heal through from being in Iraq. And I know both you and I were in Iraq. I think around the same time from what we had
I think
shared.
we
We
did
we
decide
talked
that. Yeah.
about that I was a medic and I worked with an engineering battalion and we were out on the roads. Medics were taught, and we were taught this in training
Hmm.
to shut that down.
Mm.
So I didn't get the nervous system. I wouldn't feel the nervous system response. I mean, I did when it was excessive, if there was something really excessive happening. But for the most part, if I'm treating a patient
Mhm.
and doctors, nurses, that's why I work with medical professionals mostly, because we are trained to not listen to our nervous system
Mhm.
because we're in an environment where we need to be totally on. We have to be thinking clear. We have to know what decisions to make at what point. So we're the calm and everybody else is like, ah, and so we learn how to bypass listening to our nervous system because our nervous system would be heart rate, like we'd just be a mess. But we're like, I have to focus. I have to know what I'm doing. I need to shut this down. That was really challenging to learn how to listen again for me, to actually go, oh, I need to pay attention in this moment to what's going on in my nervous system. How am I feeling to be able to regulate that so that I could move to the next thing? I spent a lot of time when I came home avoiding because that was comfortable. It was more comfortable not to feel my nervous system
Mhm.
than it was to have, be uncomfortable. So being an entrepreneur, that's happening almost daily, sometimes hourly, depending on what you're doing. If you're learning a whole bunch of new things, your nervous system's be like, oh, that's uncomfortable. Oh, that's uncomfortable. That's uncomfortable. So you're going to be in that. And so it's natural to just want to shut that down. And that's where procrastination comes in. So speaking to the entrepreneurs out there, they're like, how come I haven't started that project that I was going to do like 6 months ago? What am I
Yeah.
doing there? There's probably something going on that you're just avoiding it because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's such an important. I talk a lot about procrastination lately. I'm so glad you brought that up because the thing is to understand what you and I are talking about today and what you're sharing with people, that's one thing. But to actually look at what that looks like in real life and apply it, like being able to relate it situationally to the things that we really encounter each day, that's a whole different thing. And so I think that that's really helpful to go, oh, okay, so the procrastination, that's not like laziness or sometimes it's a lack of clarity, but more often than not, it's a fear response.
Yep.
So like you were talking about the fight, flight, freeze, it's a fear response, it's a stress response. And so for anybody who's listening, if you've noticed, yeah, I actually procrastinate a lot and I was just telling myself I was lazy or unfocused or unmotivated, but now I'm listening to Susie and that doesn't feel right. I want you to know that you are absolutely not alone. That is so common for us because, as Susie said 1,000 times, or not 1,000 times, but as you've emphasized, like everything that we do as entrepreneurs invites newness because otherwise we're not growing, right? So if we're growing, it's newness. And so, yeah, we're definitely all encountering that regularly over and over and over again. But the beauty of you being here with me today, Susie, to talk about this is you're going to help people to understand that it's not the way that they have to be and fight through or freeze up in their business, that there's a better way and not ignoring it and stuffing it down, but actually attending to it in a healthy way that allows you to like expedite the process of growth. So, shall we get
Yeah.
into that?
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Okay. All right. So what somebody who is noticing that this is what they're experiencing, what's the very first thing you would say to them?
So let's stay with procrastination because you've been talking about that, and I think that's a great example because it's a neutral example. When
Yeah.
people think of procrastinating, they don't think it's good, bad, or anything,
Hmm.
and they might associate it with being lazy, or they might associate it with I'm kicking the can down the road. I'm just not paying attention. But it doesn't really have a huge emotional charge, I don't think, with it.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Okay.
When I hear procrastination, it's kind of like,
Yeah, I've just
maybe
been
later,
procrastinating.
whatever. I've
Yeah.
just been, so it's kind of a safe one to really think through. And we all do it all the time with everything because we're making, I don't know what the statistic is, but it's like hundreds of thousands of decisions a day
Oh yeah.
automatically. Like our brains doing all of these things. So when we're in a procrastination, we're actually consciously saying no.
Hmm.
We're actually saying no to the thing. We're not waiting or sitting and contemplate. We're just saying no. We're like, nope, not going to do that. And so that step one would be ask yourself why. Why am I saying no to writing my newsletter?
Yeah.
I like to use that example because for me, for some reason, and I should explore this deeper, I don't like to write newsletters. Like I have one, and when I get into it, I have fun with it.
Mhm.
But the actual start of it is like, I don't know why.
Yeah.
And I should explore that again, sitting with it for a minute. Ask yourself why,
Mhm.
and then tap into the emotions that come up. So I love to say, I tell people this all the time, get a pen and paper. Let's move away from the electronics for a minute.
Mhm.
Get a pen and paper because your motor skills are going to be different. So get a pen and paper and write down what it is that you are procrastinating on, you're saying no to. And then start writing out a list. And you can use lists so you can get it out of your head.
Mhm.
Why did you say no? Why are you not taking that first step with whatever it is? And just list out, that'll give you a picture that then you can go to each one of them, say, what's the emotion that I'm feeling for that one thing? So for newsletter writing, I could list out, I don't want to come up with a title.
Yeah.
A newsletter needs a title. An email needs a subject line. Like starting that tiny and just going, oh, well, what is my problem with title writing? Like, what's going on there? What am I emotionally? Well, if I write a title that people don't like, they're not going to read the newsletter. Therefore, it's going to be a failure.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's then the actual root reason
Yeah.
why I'm not doing the thing. So just letting yourself sit with it and go through it just item by item and just because what'll happen is you'll start to hear the story that's in your head that you're afraid of and then you can disregard it. You can say that's not true.
Yeah.
Somebody will read my newsletter. I'm sure of it. It's not going on deaf ears. Like somebody's going to, and I'm going to get a feedback then, the titles that work and the ones that don't. So then you can kind of like troubleshoot that and be like, oh, well, this is just a test. It's not a good or bad thing. So yeah, just really sitting with it and that's where my analytical brain goes. But it's again feeling.
Yeah.
What am I feeling about not being able to write a title? What is that happening in my body? What's making me feel that way?
Yeah. I think you've touched on a couple of really important skills in what you just shared. And one of them is I heard the curiosity, right? So, and I just wanted to caveat that, if I may, with curiosity without judgment. And you didn't say anything about judgment, but I
Yeah.
just want to be really clear for people because when we get curious, we do tend to get very judgy of ourselves, of others too sometimes. That's neither here nor there. But we can like start to attach judgment to, oh, that's stupid. Why am I feeling that way, right? But if you're just curious and just seeking to get more insight, more answers about why you are the way you are, without going attaching anything to the reasoning, right? Just okay, now I understand. So that's important, right? Just get curious without, um, attaching anything to it, any kind of judgment to it. And then the other thing that you said, oh man, it's evading me. This is why I should take notes when I do. These-
I do that too. It's totally okay. It'll come back. It's going to be like,
it
whoosh,
probably will come back. And if it's,
interrupt me if it does.
yeah, no, if I won't interrupt you, I'll maybe jot it down, take the note. But Um, yeah, it's not coming back to me. So, but that's at least one of the things that I wanted to highlight about what you just said is really important. So, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So,
What
go
is
ahead.
something I'm just curious from your point of view, what is something that you do when you have something you're procrastinating on? What are some of the things that you focus on?
So, kind of like, how do I get through it? Is that what you mean? Or like,
Yeah.
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 So, actually, what I love about this conversation with you is you and I align so much on our approach to coaching and helping people work through it. The very first thing I suggest, and I'd like to say I always take my own advice, don't
We don't.
always succeed in that.
I
Um,
don't.
no, yeah. I mean, do as I say, not as I do, right? That's horrible advice. Don't do that. Um, but it is the curiosity. So I always say the very first thing is awareness. And that's not necessarily a thing we have control over, but that's what we're giving, right? Once
Mhm.
you have been given the gift of awareness, the very next thing you can do with that is get curious about it. So I mean, that's absolutely where I would start. Um, I think. Getting curious without judgment is easier said than done, too, though. And so I want to go back to something that you talked about, at least briefly earlier, and you talked about like deep breathing. I don't remember exactly what you were saying in the moment, but when you notice that you're starting to get curious about something and maybe you're getting a little anxious about it, maybe you have inadvertently attached a judgment to it and you're like, oh gosh, now like what do I do? Like I didn't do the right thing.
Mhm.
I didn't follow the rules and now I've screwed it up, right? Like we're human. We have to learn how to do these things, I would say. Um, get curious, give yourself grace. And when you find that you're not, because you're human and we all make mistakes and we have to learn the process, do some deep breathing to start to bring down that stress response again. That's always the thing I'm going to go back to is do your deep breathing to keep the stress response down. That keeps the clarity of mind so you can continue to investigate and it keeps the stress out of the physical body. So that would be
Yeah.
my perspective.
Yeah. And I want to piggyback on that for people in order to process that energy, because that's what's flowing through your nervous system.
Yeah.
If you are able to do this, and I always tell people, do what you're comfortable doing.
Mhm.
So, for example, if I'm in a setting where I'm getting ready to write my newsletter and I start getting a nervous system response that's activated, so I'm going to do some deep breathing and I'm going to ask myself two questions. I'm going to say, do I want to process this and get to where I don't have this response anymore when I sit down to write my newsletter? Or do I just want to calm my nervous system to be able to function, to be able to actually do the newsletter?
Yeah.
So if the answer is, I don't want to feel this way again,
Mhm.
like I want to get rid of this, then I'm going to allow that feeling to come all the way through. So
Mhm.
if my heart's racing, and I teach this is coaching that I do. If there's different things you can do, physical movement, grounding, breathing, like all these different things you can do to let the energy move. So if I know how to move that energy and I'm in a comfortable space, it's safe. I know that I'm going to be fine.
Mhm.
I'll move the energy. So I'll let it get to a point where it's overflowing. And if there's tears, I have to move, if I have to go outside and walk around the neighborhood, like whatever it is that I need to do while I'm thinking, I'm letting this go. I'm letting this nervous system response, this fight, flight, or freeze. I'm letting it go, but I'm going to let it be. I'm going to let it do what it's going to do. If it's, go outside and scream really loud, just make sure your neighbors know that you're okay.
Yeah.
There's different things like, because you have to move the energy.
Sure.
So if you're able to do that, that's what I do. Because then I don't want to deal with it anymore. Next time I sit down to do my newsletter, it's either going to be completely gone. I'm not going to have the response because I now processed it, or it's less.
Hmm.
It's less of a response.
Yeah.
If I don't have the opportunity to do that, for example, you and I are going to get on this podcast and I'm a person that maybe gets nervous on camera and I'm like, I don't know what, then I'm going to do the deep breathing. I'm going to do it. And I'll do things ahead of time before we get on the call to regulate. So there's two different things. It's regulation versus resolving.
Hmm.
And you can do both and both are important. But you named it. Once you're aware,
Hmm.
every single time I get on Zoom, I have this nervous. Do you want to get rid of that or do you want to just deal with it?
Yeah.
Like you can resolve it or you can just regulate it. And
Yeah.
it really takes being with a professional, you and me, having a coach, having somebody that you can process these things with is really, really important for those of you that are listening.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. I think there's a couple things that come to mind for me around that is, and tell me what you think about this, because I don't think it differed.
Mhm.
What you're saying, I don't think it differs. I just tend to relay it different. So tell me what you think about this. But when you choose to just work like I'm going to say power through in the moment. But
Yeah.
in this instance, when I say power through, I mean powering through using your tools like stress regulation stuff, right? So not just doing it scared. I never advocate for that. I don't, it doesn't sound like you do either.
Mhm.
But instead of stopping and getting curious about the emotion and trying to understand it and process it in the moment, going, no, what I really need to do is do this thing. So doing the thing, but like doing the deep breathing or grounding along with it so that you are still bringing down the stress response. So, what I always share with that is that thing that you're doing in the moment when chosen to do habitually, is still giving you long-term results. So it's not a band-aid, right? If you do it the one time, it's
Yeah.
a band-aid.
Yeah.
But when you do it on repeat, when you go, oh, I'm feeling stressed, let me get grounded, let me do my deep breathing, you're teaching your nervous system, you're teaching your brain, you're teaching your body this new habit of doing the lowering of the stress. So I think from my perspective, what's important for people to understand is, do you have to stop every single time you have an emotion and go, ooh, what's behind this emotion? Let me figure this out, right? I don't think so, personally. I think when it's, like you said, repetitiously, when it's coming back every single time I sit down to record, am I getting stressed? Might be something to look at. If it just came up randomly, do I have to stop? Not necessarily, right? So I think from my
Yeah.
perspective, that would be what I would add to that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it is, I also like to name it's practice
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
it's never one and done. Like even if I did all the things to process the internet, like I'm still gonna have it's residual energy that we hold.
Yeah.
And so repetition, which is what we talked about in the beginning,
Mhm.
repetition is what helps over time. And that I know you and I both, we give our clients homework. It's like, okay, we're not just going to get on a call and do a coaching session and then, okay, you're good till next time. It's like, no, every time you have this one thing coming up, do your deep breathing and keep moving forward. Don't let it stop you. And there isn't a one time fix. And I think that's probably, from my opinion, our society has turned into, oh, I'll just get a medication for this, or I'll just, do a meditation for that. And like, and it's not just pharmaceutical, but it's anything. Like, oh, I'll just go to the gym and do a yoga
A
session and then I'm
hack,
good.
a quick
Like,
fix.
yeah, it's not one and done. And I think that's such a powerful thing to remind even entrepreneurs when you, and I work with, again, the people just starting out and they're like, well, I just set it up and then it goes and it's fine. Like, no, you get started, but stuff changes and you're having to repetitively go back and shift things and tweak things and change things. And you're going to grow and you're going to change and you're going to expand. So we're in this constant evolution of growth and learning and changing. And that's how it has to happen with our capacity to be able to tolerate the changes that are happening. And that's just like what you said. When you do those deep breathing and you do the regulation repetitively, there's going to be a moment where you go, I don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not necessary as frequently. And to add to that, you notice like, oh, I just started doing that automatically. I didn't even think about it. Right?
Yeah.
That's what habits are. Is you do things
Yep.
repetitively until it just happens automatically. And when you do commit to doing the process, the practices, as you and I like to call them in between sessions and whatnot, is when you do it, when you commit to it and you do it on repeat, one day you suddenly do go, I didn't even choose to do that and it happened. And you're like, what they just said
Yeah.
really, it worked, right? It's kind of amazing how that works.
And that's the shift from when you're procrastinating.
Mhm.
Instead of thinking about it and choosing to put it down the road, you just do it.
Yes, your brain will
You're like,
automatically look for the resolution. Your body will
yep.
automatically respond in a way that feels better because it's looking for the growth, for the resolution, for the answer, for the way through, as
Yeah.
opposed to how do I keep myself here safe? So you get
Yeah.
comfortable in the discomfort, which is what we're talking about, comfortable with change, right? So I love
Yeah.
that. Oh, this is so good. What would be the next thing that you would suggest?
For procrastinating, we're
We
staying
can
on the
continue with
procrastination.
procrastination since that's kind of what the example we've been using. Yeah.
So I'm going to stay with the awareness piece because I think,
Mhm.
again, repetition. If you're listening to this, and we named it a couple of times in the podcast, but the more we name it and give you different examples, the easier it is to see it. And awareness, I'm going to give you a real time example. Happened to me this morning.
Okay.
I'm working in a program that has a lot of tasks. So I'm learning a new skill.
Mhm.
So I have my learning, which is uncomfortable. So
Okay.
I'm in that space. Lots of tasks. So again, uncomfortable because it's not my normal daily routine
Mhm.
that I've been doing, the habits I've been doing that are automatic. It's outside of that. And I found myself this morning, I had in my mind, okay, I'm going to watch these videos and I'm going to do the task that goes with them. And like 2 hours into my morning, I realized I hadn't even started the videos yet. So I didn't consciously sit down at my desk and go, I'm going to put that off till later. I had an awareness that this was what I wanted to do today,
Mhm.
but I just naturally started to gravitate to these other things that I'm more comfortable doing.
Yeah.
And I just started, I think I was in finance. I was like looking at finance and my forecasting, and I was like in my spreadsheets, which is my happy zone. I love numbers. So
Okay.
for me, it's very comfortable and it's fun. So I'm like, doing my thing. And I went I caught it 2 hours. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I was going to do that training video. Why am I not doing that training video?
Mm.
There's something going on there. And I know it is because it's new, a new thing I'm learning. It's a lesson. I'm watching a lesson video and then I have to do a task, which is different. And I had all these things that were uncomfortable because it's new, but then I had the comfort of numbers over here. And I automatically gravitated to the numbers and just started getting busy.
Mhm.
So I want to highlight that awareness is so powerful.
Mhm.
And I'm going to tell you what went on in my head. I'm in my spreadsheet and I'm doing my thing. And I went, you just deliberately procrastinated
Um,
without knowing it. I subconsciously, it's like it was subconscious at one point and then it came into my conscious. And I went, oh, for 2 hours, I've been subconsciously procrastinating. Now it's aware. And I immediately shut my spreadsheet down and I went over to the training video. I didn't know I had done it.
Wow.
So I didn't have, so step one didn't make sense. Like I didn't sit down at my desk and consciously say, I'm going to choose spreadsheet over training.
Right.
I sat down at my desk and I just automatically started doing spreadsheets. Like it was just not automatic. And I didn't notice till 2 hours later, it came into my conscious and I went, whoa, what am I doing? I shouldn't be in here. I should be over here. So I want to name that awareness is so powerful, but it's personal. And
Yeah.
that's where Heather and you and I come in as coaches. We help people learn how to identify. Can I make a reference from the Army with this?
Yeah. Rock on.
I don't know if your listeners are going to understand it. They might.
I
When
mean,
you zero in your rifle,
mhm.
you're making tiny little changes specifically for how you're viewing where it is that you're going to shoot.
Yeah.
So it's these tiny little tweaks, but it's custom to your sight. So if you're zeroing in your sight line, which is what you're doing when you're learning and working with a coach,
Mhm.
how do I notice my own subconscious things?
Yeah.
Working with a coach helps me to see that because then we can mirror that back to them and reflect that back to them and go,
Yeah.
do you know that you're saying this or this? Oh, I didn't know that. And all of a sudden
Yes.
it makes sense.
Yeah.
So that would be the second thing is just really, really learning how to be aware.
Yeah, I agree. So I call those blind spots. I'm sure there's lots of terms for them, and there's probably a lot of other people that call them blind spots as well, but I call them blind spots. And I agree. I think there's so much self-coaching we do. I mean, even us as coaches, right? There's so much self-coaching we can do, and still there are always going to be blind spots. And I think if somebody wants to DIY it, rock on. I'm not going to talk you out of it, right? But I do strongly believe in the power of a coach because not only am I a coach, not only are you a coach, Susie, but I have coaches of my own because I know I have blind spots. And the only way to have those blind spots come to light is to have somebody identify them. That somebody hasn't been me. So if somebody from the outside looking in can go, hey, did you know I didn't, but I do now, and now I can attend to it. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is
And
absolutely coaching.
it's uncomfortable. My opinion,
Mm.
when my clients get upset with me, I'm doing my job. When they get uncomfortable with the things I'm saying,
Yeah.
I'm doing a good job. I mean, not that we have a good or bad job, but if I reflect things properly to them, it's going to make them uncomfortable. because they didn't see it. The blind spot happens in the place that's uncomfortable. Like
Yeah.
we don't see it. So like and this is happening to me right now, again, real time, the program that I'm in and the people I'm working with, they know their stuff
Mhm.
and I'm in it to learn. And there are times when my little ego pops in and is like, well, I already know how to do that. And then,
Ah.
so I like ignore something
Yeah.
and then they come back and they like right in my face with it. And I'm like, that's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's needed. Like it's something I missed. I needed to know that. I needed to learn that thing that I thought I already knew.
Yeah.
There's always room for growth. And that's where it gets uncomfortable.
Hmm. Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree. So, okay. So, kind of getting ready to wrap up here. We talked a lot about like procrastination. Really, the broad picture that we were focusing on today was how do you get comfortable with change? Procrastination is kind of a way that shows up for us. It's a way that we stay away from change, right? That we kind of like stay in the comfort zone, stay in the safe space, if you will. Is there anything before we wrap up that you think people absolutely have to know? And before I ask the question, I just want to encourage people, if you have questions about anything that we've talked about, by all means, please drop them in the comments because Susie and or I will come back and we will answer your questions. We're gonna let you know at the end here how you can connect with Susie as well. If you're like, no, I'm ready. I'm ready to do the work. I got to dive deeper. We'll get into that. But with all of that said, that was for them, Susie. This one's for you. With everything that we've talked about today, even outside of procrastination, just thinking about getting comfortable with change, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think that would be really important for people to know before we wrap up today?
Yeah, I'm going to speak broadly to change because I love that
Yeah,
we really zeroed in on procrastination
me
because
too.
that happens when we don't want to change.
Yeah.
Um, I would say get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I know that that's like cliche and people probably say it and you hear it everywhere. But if you really think about it,
Mhm.
if we slow down and we're uncomfortable, let yourself be there.
Yeah.
We want to get out of it. It's like, I'm uncomfortable. What can I do to, get out of it? Like get out of being either learn faster, which is where I'm at right now. I'm like, I'm just going to absorb everything really fast and then I'll be comfortable,
Yeah.
which is not practical. I told my husband that today. I was like, I feel like I need to learn all this stuff that I did in this program. And it's a 4-month program. I mean, and my brain wants to get it done in like a week. So
Yeah.
then I can be comfortable because I'm uncomfortable.
Yes.
So what I would say is let yourself be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's okay. Give yourself permission when you step into a change. Say, I'm okay being uncomfortable
Yeah.
because I know that I'm in this change. I'm in this space and it's okay. Because I think that's what I needed to do. And I did that yesterday and I feel so much better. I'm like, yeah, I can take my time. I'm going to be uncomfortable for a little bit and that's okay.
Yeah. I think the beauty, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think the beauty for you and I and people who have done whatever level of personal development is the comfort in the discomfort. The comfort in the discomfort here is knowing that it's still safe. So to give everybody else a little outside, kind of perspective here is the reason that we resist being uncomfortable is because it's fear of the unknown, right? It's scary. If we don't know what's going to happen, our brain is going to go, well, let me tell you what's going to happen. And it's going to do the primal thing it does. It's going to go into overdrive and keep us alive. What it doesn't realize is real life scenario for us as humans today in the 2000s and whatnot is it's not really life threatening, the things that we are entering into. The changes are not life threatening. Our brain doesn't know that. So we have to teach it that. So when you get uncomfortable going, is this actually life threatening? No. What is this? So it goes back to what you talked about, that curiosity. What is really happening here? Am I like, is this really life or death? Absolutely not. So what is it? Well, I'm just a little scared that this is going to happen. And then when you highlight that, it removes the power of it, right? it diffuses the kind of power it has from holding you back. So I think that that is brilliant advice. Get comfortable being uncomfortable and understand in that you're safe. You are going to be okay. So
Yeah, one thing I'll add before
yes.
we wrap up, I like to use the example of learning a new language.
Mhm.
When you learn a new language, it's really uncomfortable to try to speak it because you don't want to sound silly and you want to get it right and all the things come up. But the only way that you're going to get comfortable is to do it
Mhm.
repetitively
Yeah.
and do it with people who speak that language. That's the faster route.
Yeah.
So, what I always tell people as an entrepreneur, get with other entrepreneurs
Mhm.
because we're all speaking the same language. So we can get more comfortable being uncomfortable, knowing that it's all temporary. The discomfort is temporary. Once, starting a brand new language, you're going to do the beginner stuff. And then pretty soon you're going to be putting sentences together and and so then you're like, oh, I'm comfortable now at this level. Well, now I'm going to go travel to the country that actually does it. And then you're going to feel like a newbie again and you'll be uncomfortable. But after you spend a week there, you're going to come home a different person. You're going to come home and it's temporary. Everything that we're uncomfortable with is for a limited amount of time, just depending on what it is for how long it's going to last. But it's all temporary.
Yeah. So good. That was such a powerful way to wrap this up. Thank you for that. Okay. So for people who want to connect with you, what's your favorite way to have people do that?
My favorite way is for them to listen to the podcast. If they're a podcast listener, I have a YouTube channel as well. Everything is under Starting a Business Simplified. So if you Google that or startingabusinesssimplified.com, my website has everything on there. You can click around. The podcast is on there. I tell people that because it's the best way to hear me, but also people that are guests that come on, just like what you and I are doing.
Mhm.
I love listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos because I get to know the people and it helps me to connect with them more. So all my stuff is on my website, startingabusinesssimplified.com.
Fantastic. And we're going to, of course, drop that link in the description. So it'll be easy for anybody who wants to follow through on that. Definitely follow through on that. That's the best advice I can give anybody listening today is connect with Susie. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate you sharing all of your brilliance, all of the wisdom that you brought today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather, so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely.